Chapter 1. The Power That Speaks Without Sound. There is a kind of strength that never introduces itself. It doesn't roar. It doesn't demand a stage. It moves in silence, and in that silence, it becomes unstoppable. We live in an age where noise is mistaken for significance. The louder you are, the more they say you matter. But history was not built by echoes. It was carved by the hands of the quiet. Look at the beginning of every empire, not when the world noticed it, but before. When the walls were still in ruins. When the vision was only a whisper in the mind of a single man. Think of Edison, not the moment the bulb lit the world, but the dark nights he failed again and again. Alone, uncelebrated, ridiculed. He didn't post about his failures. He didn't cry for applause. He just kept building in silence. Until the world could no longer look away. That is the essence of power. That is what most will never understand. Because the ego craves a witness. But the soul? The soul craves mastery. This world will train you to perform, to announce, to prove. But the most legendary forces, nature, genius, time, do not explain themselves. They just become. You are not here to be understood. You are not here to be liked. You are here to become something so extraordinary that even in silence, your presence is thunder. The seed does not scream when it splits the soil. The lion does not send a press release before it hunts. The mountain does not declare its rise. They simply are. So must you be. The greatest power in the world is not noise. It's momentum. And momentum is built in the shadows. Let the others chase attention. You chase mastery. Let them crave applause. You build resilience. Carnegie didn't announce his empire with fireworks. He forged it in furnaces. Steel by steel. Blow by blow. In the heat of discipline, not the comfort of validation. That's how dynasties are born. But today they sell you the lie of overnight success. The illusion that if you're not seen, you're not growing. That if you're not loud, you're not powerful. What a tragic distortion. What a dangerous myth. The strongest roots grow in silence. Beneath the surface, where no one claps for them, where no one sees their grind. Yet those roots hold up entire forests. Are you here to be a tree that sways with the wind of opinion? Or a mountain no storm can move? Your choice will define your legacy. Don't talk. Don't post. Don't announce. Execute. Because silence, when paired with purpose, becomes divine. Disney was fired for lacking imagination, laughed at for his dreams. But he didn't broadcast his pain. He built a kingdom from it. And that is what the world respects in the end. Not the noise, but the results. They'll mock your silence until they have no choice but to marvel at what it created. That's your mission. Not to be seen. To be undeniable. And how does this begin? It begins with a decision. A quiet one. A sacred one. The decision to rise. Regardless of who's watching. The decision to suffer in discipline, instead of dying in regret. The decision to walk alone. Not because you're rejected, but because you refuse to follow. This silence, it will test you. It will whisper doubts into your bones. It will beg you to shout, to break, to quit. But silence is not absence. It is refinement. It is consecration. It is where destiny strips away everything you are not. Until all that remains is what you were born to be. Don't look for eyes. Close yours. Don't wait for signs. Become one. While others chase followers, you chase mastery. While others seek relevance, you seek excellence. Because the world does not remember those who shouted. It remembers those who changed it. The first chapter of greatness is always written in private. When no one believes. When no one claps. When no one comes. And if you can still move forward then, if you can still rise without a stage, you are already a giant. You do not grow in noise. You grow in silence. You do not win by proving. You win by becoming. So work. In silence. In private. Grow. Without noise. Because when it's real, you never have to say a word. Chapter 2. The Fortress Within. Before the world can believe in you, you must build something inside you that no rejection can tear down. not a mask, not a brand. A fortress. One constructed with discipline, solitude, and an unshakable identity. The man who knows who he is needs no validation, needs no witness, needs no applause. You see, the greatest threat to your potential isn't failure, it's distraction. And today, distraction wears 1,000 masks. It comes dressed as urgency, as comparison, as applause, as envy. But beneath all that noise lies the one enemy that silences empires before they rise: self-doubt. Lincoln stood under its weight. He lost elections. He lost children. He lost peace. But he never lost the conviction that silence, when paired with vision, could change a nation. Because what you believe in the silence is what you become in the light. Discipline is not punishment. It's freedom. Every act of restraint builds another brick in your inner fortress. Every time you say no to the easy road, you say yes to the throne waiting at the end of the hard one. But today, most don't want fortresses. They want fireworks. They want the world to see their goals before they've even suffered for them. But what has no foundation cannot carry a legacy. And a legacy is not built in a moment. It's built in moments stacked in silence. Stacked when no one cares, no one helps, no one believes. Henry Ford didn't shout his dreams from rooftops. He engineered them, bolt by bolt, day after silent day. While the world mocked the very idea of a horseless carriage, he tuned the engine of a revolution. Not by talking, by doing. Not by reacting, by refining. Because true clarity doesn't come from noise. It comes when you silence everything except the truth. And here's the truth. You do not need their permission to become exceptional. You do not need their approval to be great. You only need your own endurance, your own fire, your own reason. And you don't find your reason in the eyes of others. You find it in your own refusal to be average. Average is loud. Greatness is quiet. Because it doesn't need to convince you. It knows. Now listen. You will be tested. There will be days when your mind turns against you. When your inner critic sounds louder than any voice outside you. When your ambition feels like a curse instead of a calling. That's when most retreat. They run back into the comfort of being seen, of being liked, of being accepted. But the ones who rise, they stay. They sit with the silence. They wrestle their demons. And they forge from their doubt a sword of conviction. That sword, that's your mind. Sharpen it. Not with praise. With solitude. With focus. With war against your own weakness. Because until you conquer yourself, you'll always be at the mercy of the world. Let others chase noise. You chase stillness. Let others perform. You prepare. Because when the lights finally turn to you, and the world wonders how you got there, you won't owe them a word. You'll just stand, silent, undeniable. Because what you built wasn't for them. It was for the man you refused to be. For the potential you refused to betray. For the dream you refused to abandon. Even when silence was your only friend. Every warrior begins in the shadows. Every architect drafts alone. Every king suffers in silence before he rules in power. The fortress you build inside you, brick by brick of patience, stone by stone of sacrifice, will be your crown. Not made of gold, but of fire, of silence, of scars that speak louder than any victory speech ever could. So don't fear being unseen. Fear being unprepared. Don't chase the stage. Build the character that belongs on one. And never confuse volume with value. Because you will know one day, when the doors open, and the world gasps at what you've become, that silence was never your weakness. It was your proving ground. This is the art of growing without noise. This is the discipline of winning in private. This is the beginning of a new way to rise. Chapter 3, Vision that sees beyond eyes. There is a sight greater than eyesight. A seeing that does not come from the eyes, but from the soul. You can have 20/20 vision and still be blind. Blind to your potential, blind to your purpose, blind to the kingdom buried beneath your comfort. But the ones who build empires, who defy odds, who reshape generations, they all had something in common. They saw what wasn't there yet, and they built toward it, while the world doubted, mocked, or remained silent. Vision is not a luxury. It is your compass. And if you don't have one, you'll become a servant to those who do. Look back through history's long corridor. Every titan, every visionary, every immortal mind. They walked with an inner blueprint no one else could see. Da Vinci stared at blank walls and saw flying machines. Tesla heard the crackle of electricity in his bones, before the world ever lit a single bulb. And when Walt Disney stood in a swamp in Florida, surrounded by mosquitoes and mud, he didn't see failure. He saw fireworks. He saw castles. He saw families walking through his dream. That's vision. It's not what's in front of you. It's what insists on existing through you. But understand this. Vision is expensive. Not in dollars, but in doubt, in isolation, in ridicule. Because when you see what others can't, they will call you insane before they call you genius. They will reject you, because your dream confronts their limitations. You want to see who your real allies are? Tell them your dream when it's still raw, unshaped, unborn. Watch who leans in and who leans out. That silence is your separation. And it's a gift, because vision is not meant to be debated. It's meant to be executed. You don't argue with blind men about colors. You don't seek approval from those without sight. You walk forward, alone if you must. And here's the paradox. The more vivid your vision becomes, the less you need the world to understand it. Because real clarity silences noise. It kills the need for permission. It doesn't wait. It builds. And when obstacles come, and they will, you don't retreat. You recalibrate. The vision is the root. The setbacks are the weather. The tree does not abandon its height. Because the storm came. It digs deeper. It waits. It endures. And then, it grows taller. That's you. You don't fold when the world doubts. You deepen. You reinforce. You adapt. Because your vision is not a fantasy. It's a contract with your higher self. You didn't ask to see it. It chose you. And that means you're responsible for it. Not to please anyone, but to honor the part of you that still believes in greatness. Now hear this clearly. Your vision is sacred. Guard it. Don't display it to those who only see through fear. Don't hand it to critics who've never built anything of their own. Instead, feed it, work it, shape it, in silence. Because when you water the invisible, the visible changes. The man who dreams in private wins in dimensions that others cannot even perceive. Clarity is not something you find. It's something you fight for. It comes in the quiet hours, when you shut the world out, and ask the questions no one wants to face. Who am I when no one's watching? What am I willing to suffer for? What will I become if I don't give up? Answer those. And you don't need the world to believe. You already do. So look again at your life. Not with your eyes. With your fire. With your defiance. With that sacred rage that refuses to die quietly. See what could be. And hold that vision so fiercely that even failure becomes your ally. Because once you truly see it, what you can become, there's no going back to who you were. Do not shout your vision. Honor it. Do not chase crowds. Build kingdoms. And if they don't see it yet, they're not supposed to. Because the world doesn't follow noise. It follows results. It follows those who built in silence, bled in private, and rose in power. So see what they can't. Then create it without asking. And when it arrives, they won't know how you did it. But you will. Chapter 4. The Unbreakable Thread, Discipline that Bends but Never Breaks. There comes a moment in every life when raw motivation fades, when inspiration no longer answers your calls, and when even the strongest vision begins to flicker beneath the weight of monotony, exhaustion, and time. This is the moment that separates those who merely want success from those who are destined for it. The dreamers fall here. The curious abandon ship here. But the disciplined, they are born here. Not in glory, not in triumph, but in the mundane silence of repetition, of effort without applause, of progress without proof. Discipline is not a mood. It is not a phase. It is the quiet contract between your current self and your future self, sealed not by emotion but by consistency, sacrifice, and the refusal to negotiate with weakness. True discipline begins the day you no longer rely on how you feel to determine what you do. While the world romanticizes passion, chases flow states, and worships the dopamine of inspiration, discipline operates like an eternal engine, cold and constant. It doesn't need to feel good. It doesn't need music in the background or an audience in the stands. It wakes you before dawn not because it's glamorous, but because it's necessary. It asks you to show up even when you're tired, even when you're doubting, even when no one is watching, and especially then. Because it is in those moments that greatness is forged in ways the public eye will never understand. Look at the lives of those who reshaped the world. Carnegie did not build his empire because it was easy. He built it because he understood that a day without visible progress was not a wasted day. It was a brick in a foundation that others would walk on generations later. Mandela did not become a global symbol of resilience by giving inspiring speeches alone. He became one by enduring 27 years in prison with his dignity intact, by holding the line of principle when convenience begged him to compromise. And consider Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated samurai whose strategy was not to attack wildly, but to master every movement through relentless, silent repetition, until his body became the weapon and his discipline, the invincible edge. Discipline is not about intensity, it is about persistence. You don't need to move mountains in a single day. You need to chip away at the stone every single day, even when it looks like nothing is changing. Especially then. Because beneath the surface of that stone, beneath the resistance of stagnation, a shift is occurring. Something is growing. Something is forming. And one day, with enough silent effort, that stone breaks, not from a single blow, but from the thousand silent strikes before it. That is the law of discipline. It accumulates. Quietly. Powerfully. Irreversibly. In a world that screams for shortcuts, hacks, and instant rewards, the disciplined are the true rebels. They are the ones who resist distraction, who ignore the seduction of comparison, who hold the line when everyone else drops it. And this is not because they are superhuman. It is because they made a decision, and then made it again every day with no room left for excuses. They traded dopamine for identity. They chose to become the kind of person who does what must be done, no matter the mood, no matter the reward, no matter who is watching. Let them talk. Let them celebrate flashes of brilliance while you build a bonfire of mastery. Let them show their highlight reels while you cultivate your daily grind in darkness. Because there will come a day when you step into the light not by accident, not by luck, but by right. And on that day, every unseen hour, every boring repetition, every disciplined morning when you rose against resistance, it will all echo in the silent roar of your victory. Discipline is not about suffering. It is about devotion. A devotion so deep that even when no one claps, you still deliver. Even when no one validates you, you still rise. Even when the world seems indifferent to your effort, you continue with the silent knowing that real greatness never begs for recognition. It commands it through presence, results, and the gravity of consistency. That is what you are building whether anyone sees it or not. Because in the end, it is not talent that endures. It is not intelligence that outlasts the storm. It is discipline. It is the man who kept showing up when others quit. It is the woman who kept carving forward, silently, relentlessly, while others waited to be rescued by mood, by motivation, by miracles. The disciplined don't wait for magic. They become it. So keep going. Even when it feels pointless. Even when the silence becomes heavy. Because the silence is not your enemy. It is your training ground. The silence is the crucible where resilience is forged, where character is formed, where the unshakable self is born. And the world doesn't reward those who almost did it. It remembers those who endured it, embodied it, and executed it, regardless of who was watching. You are not doing this for noise. You are doing this to become. And becoming requires silence, sacrifice, and above all, discipline. Chapter 5. Action, the only language the universe understands. There is a graveyard filled with potential. A vast, silent field where dreams were buried not by failure, but by inaction. Ideas never started. Goals never pursued. Visions spoken with passion but never carried with discipline. And if you listen closely, you'll hear their whispers in every regret that begins with, "I could have," or "I should have." The world does not bend for intention. It does not yield to your hopes, your goals, or your affirmations. It responds only to movement, to action, to the bold, irreversible step taken when the fear is loudest and the outcome is uncertain. You can visualize all you want, you can write it down 1,000 times, you can surround yourself with the greatest minds, but until you move, nothing changes. Until you act, nothing breathes. This is the great deception of modern ambition. We confuse motion with progress. We read another book. We watch another video. We journal, plan, dream, and call it growth. But your destiny is not waiting in another paragraph. It's waiting in your spine. In your decision to move when you're not ready. To build when you're still unsure. To act when it still hurts. The men and women who shaped history did not wait to feel qualified. They did not wait for clarity. They moved. They built in fog. They created in chaos. And the clarity came because they acted. Thomas Edison didn't discover the right filament on day one. He moved through 10,000 wrong ones. Because action isn't always elegant. Sometimes it looks like falling face first into failure over and over. Until failure becomes your training ground and fear becomes your fuel. And in the silence of all that failure, progress is forming. You will never think your way into mastery. You must walk it, step by brutal step. And each one will demand more from you than the last. Because the deeper you go into action, the more resistance you'll meet. But that resistance is not your enemy. It is the indicator that you're close to something real. It's the friction between who you are and who you're becoming. The mountain does not move for intentions. It moves for those who climb. Do you want to change your life? Then move. Not tomorrow. Not when it's convenient. Break the cycle of overthinking. Get out of the paralysis of perfectionism. Perfection is a prison you build with excuses. And while you wait for the perfect plan, the imperfect doers are building empires. You don't need more time. You need more courage. The courage to write the email, to launch the project, to have the hard conversation, to take the first step into the dark. Because once you move even slightly, the universe starts to respond. Opportunities begin to emerge. Connections ignite. Synchronicities align. But none of that happens if you remain still. And make no mistake, inaction is a choice. It is a slow form of surrender. It is saying to life, I don't believe I'm ready. But readiness is not a requirement. It is a reward for those who move anyway. Understand this. You don't get to build a legacy with your thoughts alone. You don't get to transform by watching others do it. The alchemy of change demands the fire of movement. There is no substitute. No mentor, no podcast, no guru, no book can walk the path for you. They can inspire. They can guide. But the steps are yours to take. You want power? Take action. You want peace? Take action. You want purpose, clarity, fulfillment, momentum? You already know the answer. Even a broken step forward is stronger than perfect hesitation. Even messy, painful movement is a miracle compared to elegant doubt. And when you fall, and you will, fall forward. Fall with fury. Fall in a way that says, at least I moved. Because action is not about being right. It's about being in motion. The ocean doesn't wait for permission to rise. The sun doesn't wait for validation to shine. And the tree doesn't ask the wind if it's okay to grow. So stop asking the world if you're allowed to become who you were born to be. You are. And the proof will be in your movement. Let the others talk. You move. Let them wonder. You act. Because when it's all said and done, the noise will fade, the opinions will pass, the doubts will dissolve, and only one thing will remain. What you did. The rest is wind. Chapter 6, Purpose, the Flame That Never Dies. There is a reason the strongest minds never quit, even when the odds have broken others. There is a reason some people rise out of circumstances so brutal, so unforgiving, so cold that the world assumes no one can make it out alive. That reason is purpose. Not a slogan. Not a trend. Not a caption you post for likes, but a flame that lives inside your chest and refuses to die, no matter how long the darkness lasts. Purpose is not something you find on the surface. It is something you dig for, deep, beneath the layers of fear, ego, distraction, and false desire. You do not stumble upon it. You fight for it. You carve it out of suffering, out of solitude, out of brutal honesty about who you are, and who you refuse to be. And once you find it, you are no longer driven by noise, by trends, by applause. You are pulled forward by something larger than success, something deeper than recognition. You are no longer moved by the outside world, because something far greater moves within you. Purpose is the difference between effort and obsession, between trying and becoming, between motivation that fades and a mission that fuels you, even when you're on your knees, even when the world has stopped watching, even when you have nothing left but breath, and still you move. Ask any warrior who has ever stood against a storm, not for glory, but because they could not imagine doing anything else. Ask any artist who has suffered in silence for years, not for fame, but because the work called to them like a religion. That is purpose. It is sacred, and it cannot be copied. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be taught in a classroom or sold in a seminar. You were born with it, but life will bury it under noise, comfort, and distraction. And your job, your mission, is to unearth it again, before the world turns you into a machine of consumption, a puppet of trends, a product of someone else's plan. Purpose is not a job title. It is not a career. It is not a role assigned to you by society. It is the intersection between your deepest pain and your highest contribution. It is the wound you carry that becomes the wisdom you offer. It is the hell you survived that becomes the fire you walk with, not to burn others, but to light the way. Look at Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the unspeakable horrors of the Holocaust. Not because he was stronger, but because he had a reason, a purpose that lived beyond the barbed wire, beyond the starvation, beyond the humiliation. He believed his suffering could one day help others, and that belief gave him strength when nothing else could. That is the kind of purpose that cannot be shaken. It does not tremble in front of rejection. It does not collapse under pressure. It becomes more alive when challenged. When you know why you are here, you stop asking if you can do it. You just do. And when life punches you in the mouth, when the setbacks keep piling up, when the silence becomes deafening, you return to that flame inside you and you say, "You can take everything, but not this. This is mine. This mission, this reason, this sacred burden that became a gift. It's not negotiable." And when that becomes true, nothing can stop you. Not failure, not fatigue, not fear, not time. Because purpose turns every obstacle into training. It turns pain into prophecy. It turns every no into fuel. It doesn't just move you. It transforms you. People without purpose search endlessly. For meaning, for stimulation, for direction. They chase distraction to fill the void. They decorate their cages and call it freedom. But the person with purpose? They move differently. They speak less, but their presence commands more. They don't need to shout. Their discipline speaks louder than noise ever could. Their days are not random. Their actions are not reactive. They are building something you cannot yet see. And they do it in silence, because purpose is louder than performance. So if you've been feeling lost, the answer is not outside you. It's buried beneath the noise you've accepted as normal. It's buried beneath the masks you wear to be liked. Beneath the dreams you adopted but never questioned. Ask yourself, what breaks my heart when I see it in the world? What truth burns in me that I can no longer deny? What story am I here to tell? Not with words, but with how I live, how I rise, how I endure. Answer that, and you won't need another motivational speech. You won't need more time. You won't need to convince anyone. You'll already be moving. Purpose is quiet at first, a whisper in the night. But if you listen and you obey, it becomes a war cry that never leaves your bones. And when the world finally sees what you've built, when they marvel at your silence, your discipline, your endurance, you'll know it wasn't magic. It was purpose. Undeniable. Unstoppable. Unshakable. Chapter 7. Adaptability, the mind of water, the strength of fire. Every great soul that has walked this earth understood one truth. The plan will never go as planned. Life will twist, pressure, break and scatter you in ways no forecast could have predicted. And it is in those moments, not of certainty but of sudden shift, that true greatness is either forged or forfeited. The man who cannot adapt is the man who dies before he has even begun. Because strength in its highest form is not rigidity. It is flexibility under fire. It is being able to bend without breaking, to change course without abandoning your direction, to keep moving forward when the path disappears beneath your feet. Adaptability is not weakness. It is power disguised as humility. It is the strength to say, "This didn't work, but I still will." It is the intelligence to assess what no longer serves, and the courage to let it go. Too many hold tightly to what once worked, to what once brought comfort or control, and in doing so, they trap themselves in dying systems and fading versions of themselves. They become prisoners of their past choices because they fear the unknown terrain of change. But the adaptable understand something deeper. They know that evolution demands discomfort. That progress often wears the mask of chaos. That who you become is often the result of how well you navigate what you didn't see coming. History remembers not just the strong, but the resourceful. Think of Abraham Lincoln, not the towering figure of monuments and textbooks, but the man who had to govern a divided, burning nation, adjusting policy, command, and even belief, as the Civil War reshaped the ground under his feet. He didn't cling to purity. He clung to purpose. He changed when it mattered. Not for approval but for impact. Or look at Darwin, not as a scientist obsessed with control, but as a mind so surrendered to reality that he built his life's work not on certainty, but on the principle that life thrives through its ability to adapt. It is not the strongest that survives, he said, but the one most responsive to change. Therein lies the secret. In your life, storms will come. The storms you anticipated and the ones that will blindside you. People will leave. Markets will shift. Bodies will betray. Plans will collapse. And in those moments, you will be faced with a decision: resist the storm and be broken by it, or absorb the blow and become something stronger than you were before. Adaptability is the art of not resisting what is, but using it. It is asking not, "Why did this happen to me?" but, "What can I become because of it?" It is shifting from victim to alchemist, turning chaos into fuel, failure into refinement, and pain into precision. You must become like water, shape-shifting, uncatchable, always flowing forward. Water does not argue with the rock in its way. It flows around it. Over time, it wears it down. And yet, water also carries the strength of floods, the fury of oceans, the calm of lakes. That's the mind you must cultivate. Flexible but focused. Soft in resistance but unstoppable in direction. Adaptability is not the abandonment of principle. It is the mastery of form. The musician who cannot play outside his genre has not mastered music. The entrepreneur who cannot pivot in crisis has not mastered the art of building. The leader who cannot shift strategy when lives are at stake has no business leading. Rigidity masquerades as confidence. But adaptability is what truly wins wars. Because it does not depend on a single plan. It finds a way or it makes one. The most dangerous person in the room is not the one with the biggest plan, but the one who cannot be broken when the plan fails. That's who you must become. The one who smiles when the strategy falls apart because they know the vision still lives. The one who says, "Good, I'll try something else." The one who refuses to die where they stand simply because the world shifted the rules mid-game. You will not grow if you insist that everything stays the same. You will not succeed if you cling to the path that no longer serves your destination. You must be willing to discard old dreams if they no longer fit the truth of who you are becoming. You must not fall in love with the tools. You must fall in love with the purpose. Because tools will change. Tactics will evolve. Circumstances will stretch and shatter what you thought you needed. But if your heart is anchored in something real, if your mission is clear, you will flow through fire, through storm, through shadow and emerge not damaged, but redesigned. To adapt is to stay alive. To grow in silence, you must move with life, not against it. And that means releasing what no longer fits. That means making room for new methods, new mindsets, new environments, even if it costs you what you once called home. You are not here to stay the same. You are here to become something so fluid that no obstacle can hold you, no setback can freeze you, no failure can define you. In a world that worships control, be the one who masters adjustment. In a culture obsessed with having the right answer, be the one who finds better questions. In a marketplace that punishes vulnerability, be the one who turns adaptation into dominance. Because when the dust settles, it is not the loudest who win, or even the fastest. It is the one who knew how to dance with the unexpected, to grow through the pain, to rise without fanfare when the old world fell. Relentlessly. Evolve without apology. Be willing to abandon what you built if it no longer aligns with where you're going. Burn the old maps. Draw new ones in fire. Let the storms come. You are not here to survive them. You are here to command them. Chapter 8. Resilience, the will that does not shatter. Resilience is not something you are born with. It is not inherited, not given, not found in a book or unlocked by motivational speeches. It is forged, hammered, tempered in the fire of trials you never asked for, in nights that stretch too long, in failures that strip away everything except the one small, sacred voice in your mind that whispers, "Get up." To the outside world, resilience may look like stoicism, endurance, grit. But to the one walking through the storm, it feels more like bleeding silently while refusing to crawl, holding a line only you can see while everything within you begs you to let go. You don't know what resilience is until you've reached that point. The point of emotional exhaustion, the point of shattered expectations, the point of isolation so deep it echoes, and still, you choose to take one more step. What most people call strength is often just convenience. It's easy to be positive when things go well, to be disciplined when the world claps for your effort, to be confident when you're praised, supported, admired. But resilience is what you call upon when all of that vanishes. It is the force that moves you forward when no one sees you, when no one encourages you, when the applause dies and the silence becomes deafening. That's where the real work begins. That's where identity is not performed, but proven. You see, resilience does not care about appearances. It is not concerned with how polished you look or how composed you seem to others. It only asks one question: will you continue, or will you collapse? Think of those who built legacies that outlived their pain. Frederick Douglass was not born free. He was born into bondage, beaten by circumstance, erased by the system that was designed to keep him silent. Yet, he rose, not because life made it easy, but because he refused to die unknown. His resilience was not poetic. It was brutal, unglamorous, hard. And it changed history. Think of Nelson Mandela, who sat in a prison cell not for days, not for months, but for decades, emerging not bitter, not broken, but wiser, stronger, more determined. That kind of resilience doesn't grow in the comfort zone. It's born in isolation, in pressure, in the furnace of sustained hardship. Most people would have surrendered, but the resilient don't surrender, they transform. You have to understand that resilience is not simply about enduring. It's not about waiting for the pain to stop. It's about growing through it, about standing so still in your purpose that even when the ground shakes, you do not fall into despair. You may wobble, you may scream, you may bleed, but you do not stay down. You cannot. Because something inside you has already decided that the pain is part of the process, not the end of the road. And this isn't just emotional. It's spiritual. There is a deeper dimension to resilience that transcends the physical body and the rational mind. It's the soul refusing to shrink under pressure. It's the internal contract you made with yourself long ago, that no matter what happens, you will not vanish quietly. There's a reason diamonds are formed under pressure. A reason steel must be fired in intense heat before it becomes useful. You, too, are being shaped, not destroyed. The struggle you face is not a punishment. It is a preparation. Life is not attacking you. It is sharpening you, stripping away the excess, the ego, the illusion, until all that remains is what cannot be taken. And if you can hold the line through that, if you can stay silent, strong, grounded when everything inside you wants to run, you will come out of it not just unbroken, but unrecognizable to the version of you who once feared the fire. What makes resilience so powerful is that it doesn't announce itself. You can't see it from the outside. It doesn't post its progress. It doesn't need affirmation. It's invisible power. It's the reason some people keep rising no matter how many times they're knocked down. And the resilient don't rise the same way each time. They rise differently. Wiser. Sharper. Less naive. Their silence becomes heavier. Their presence more potent. They are not eager to be understood because they've already endured more than most can comprehend. And you, if you are in that place right now where everything feels too heavy, where you're fighting battles no one can see, where you feel like breaking is the only option, remember this. Resilience is not about pretending you're okay. It's about continuing even when you're not. It's not about smiling through the pain. It's about owning the pain and still showing up with dignity. It's about holding on to your core values when everything around you tempts you to betray them. It's about saying, I will not be defined by this. Not because you have something to prove to the world, but because you promised yourself you'd finish what you started. The world often misunderstands resilience. They think it's loud. They think it's brave speeches and heroic acts. But real resilience is quieter. It's the man who wakes up every day with grief in his bones and still goes to work. It's the woman who feels invisible in a world that doesn't see her worth and still chooses to believe in herself. It's the person who has every reason to give up, but chooses to keep going, not for recognition, but for redemption. And that, more than talent, more than luck, more than brilliance, that is what builds empires. That is what transforms lives. That is what history bows to. You don't need to be unshaken to be resilient. You just need to keep rising every time the ground gives out. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be faithful to your path, even when fear surrounds you. Because in the silence of your suffering, in the quiet nights when no one knows what you're enduring, you are not breaking, you are becoming. Chapter 9. Learning, the mind that refuses to die where it stands. There is no evolution without education, no reinvention without revelation, and no transformation without the humbling act of learning. The most dangerous man in any room is not the one who knows it all, but the one who knows that he never will. Learning is the true mark of the unstoppable, the silent engine that keeps burning behind every success story, every great invention, every revolution. Those who rise beyond their time, those who outgrow mediocrity and transcend circumstance, all share the same trait. They are not afraid to be a student. They are not afraid to say, I don't know yet, but I'm willing to find out. In a world addicted to appearances, where everyone wants to seem like the expert, the truly powerful are quietly sharpening themselves behind closed doors, consuming knowledge not to impress, but to prepare. To learn is to surrender the illusion of knowing. It is the radical act of becoming new. Not just in information, but in identity. And make no mistake, this isn't about accumulating facts. It's not about hoarding data or chasing certificates. It's about becoming wiser, sharper, more accurate with your time, your speech, your energy. It's about cutting through ignorance like a blade and refusing to be the same person year after year. If your mind is not evolving, your spirit is decaying. Stagnation is not stillness, it is slow death. Growth, real growth, happens when you allow life to challenge your assumptions, when you invite opposing perspectives not to argue, but to elevate, when you read, listen, observe, and apply, not once, but relentlessly. True learning is not passive. It is not something that happens to you. It is something you must chase. You must hunt it with intention, carve out time from comfort, sacrifice ease in favor of depth. This is what separates the average from the elite, not intelligence, but hunger. There are people far less talented than you who are miles ahead simply because they never stopped learning. While others were busy defending their old beliefs, they were upgrading theirs. While others repeated the same patterns, they studied new ways. They sat with discomfort. They sought teachers. They listened more than they spoke. And now, they live lives others only fantasize about. History honors the learners. Benjamin Franklin, a man with no formal education, became one of the most respected minds of his century, not because of privilege, but because of obsession. He devoured books, practiced disciplines, tested ideas, wrote in silence when others wasted their breath in complaint. Or look at Leonardo da Vinci, not merely a painter, but an engineer, scientist, anatomist, and philosopher. He lived in a constant state of curiosity, driven not by fame, but by the thrill of discovery. That mindset, that refusal to plateau, is what makes a human mind a force of nature. But here is what no one tells you. Learning requires ego death. You must be willing to admit that what got you here will not take you further. You must be brave enough to destroy your old way of thinking, even if it once served you. Especially if it once served you. Because evolution demands sacrifice. And most people stay stuck not because they lack intelligence, but because they are too proud to say, "I was wrong." Learning requires you to become uncomfortable. To walk into rooms where you're not the smartest. To read things that shake your worldview. To be mentored by people whose standards make you feel inadequate. But that feeling of inadequacy, of humility, that's the doorway to your next level. Most avoid it. But if you're still here, still walking, still listening, you're not most people. Let others decorate themselves with titles and appearances. You decorate your mind with truth, with wisdom, with clarity. Read the books no one talks about. Study the boring things others overlook. Ask questions that make people nervous. Seek teachers who don't flatter you, but challenge you. Make learning a sacred ritual, not a seasonal trend. Because the moment you stop learning, the world begins to outgrow you. And the world does not wait. It moves quietly. And it only honors those who adapt with intelligence, who sharpen their minds with the same intensity others sharpen their image. And understand, learning is not linear. Some days you will learn more from failure than from 100 books. Sometimes pain will be your professor, and silence your classroom. Pay attention to every detail. Learn from the disrespect. Learn from the delay. Learn from the closed door, the betrayal, the missed chance. If your mind remains open, nothing is wasted. Not even suffering. Everything becomes fuel. And over time, you stop reacting to life. You start decoding it. You start seeing the patterns, the hidden advantages. And suddenly, you are no longer merely surviving. You are strategizing. That is what learning gives you. Not just knowledge, but advantage, awareness, power. So build your mind in silence. Study like your future depends on it, because it does. Learn as if the world is trying to deceive you, because often it is. And never stop. Never believe the lie that you've arrived. Because the minute you do, your hunger dies, and your mind begins to rust. The most dangerous mindset is not ignorance, it is arrogance. The belief that you've learned enough, that you've grown enough, that you're done. You are never done. Chapter 10. Gratitude, the silent force that multiplies everything. Gratitude is not a soft word. It is not a cliché. It is not a motivational sticker to paste on the mirror. It is not shallow optimism or forced cheerfulness. Real gratitude is warforged. It is a sharp, quiet strength that blooms in the minds of those who have endured. It is not born in abundance. It is born in the trenches, in the moments when everything could have gone wrong and somehow you are still standing. It is not the product of comfort, but of contrast. It is the mature awareness that life, no matter how imperfect, has been offering you gifts all along, gifts hidden in pain, in failure, in silence, in detours that did not make sense until they shaped you. And the man who learns to see those gifts, who trains his mind to extract meaning even from the mess, that man becomes unstoppable, not because he has more, but because he sees more in what he already has. Gratitude is clarity. It is the act of stepping back from the noise of what's missing and recognizing what is already working. It is not passive, it is active. It is not denial, it is deep recognition. Gratitude doesn't ignore struggle, it integrates it. It says, yes, this is hard. Yes, this is painful. But I will not let that blind me to what still remains. To what is still possible. When others complain, the grateful mind builds. When others envy, the grateful mind focuses. And when others despair, the grateful mind finds fuel, not because the road is easy, but because it sees opportunity where others only see obstacles. This is not just emotional, it is strategic. A grateful mind is a focused mind, and a focused mind makes better decisions, acts with greater precision, and carries more momentum than a mind clouded by scarcity, resentment, and distraction. Think of the greatest builders, the legends who rose from nothing. Their gratitude was not for luxury, it was for breath, for time, for a second chance, for another day to fight. Abraham Lincoln lost his mother at 9, his sister at 19, and buried 2 of his 4 children while governing a nation torn apart. But in his writings, you find not bitterness, but reverence, a man who knew that to hold power was a temporary privilege, not a birthright. Or consider Helen Keller, deaf and blind from the age of 19 months, yet she wrote, "So much has been given to me, I have no time to ponder that which has been denied." That is not weakness. That is not naivete. That is conscious, cultivated power. That is a refusal to be defined by lack. Gratitude sharpens you. It does not dull your edge, it tempers it. It allows you to suffer without becoming a victim, to succeed without becoming arrogant, to grow without forgetting the roots. Without gratitude, success becomes toxic. Without gratitude, growth turns into entitlement. The ungrateful mind always wants more, but can't handle what it has. It compares. It complains. It consumes. But the grateful mind? It expands everything it touches. It multiplies energy. It sees the miracle in the mundane. It protects the spirit from corrosion, especially in silence, especially when no one is validating your work. You must understand that gratitude is not something you wait to feel. It is a mental discipline. You practice it when you wake up and your goals feel distant. You practice it when the people you trusted fall silent. You practice it when the victories are small and private and no one claps. Because gratitude is not about moments, it's about mindset. If you don't train your eyes to see what's valuable now, you will never see it when it's multiplied. That's why so many people sabotage their own abundance. They didn't learn to respect it when it was still fragile. And don't confuse gratitude with stagnation. It doesn't mean you stop building, stop growing, stop evolving. It means you build from a place of enough, not from scarcity, not from desperation, not from fear. Because when you are grateful, you are grounded. And when you are grounded, your power becomes precise. You no longer chase everything. You no longer crave recognition. You no longer waste energy proving yourself. You channel it into building silently, patiently, and wisely. Every morning you wake up with breath in your lungs, you have leverage. Every moment your heart still beats, you carry currency. Every day you can think, act, reflect, and move, you are rich. Gratitude is not weakness. It is perspective sharpened by awareness. It is the defiance to see gifts even when pain is louder. And those who master it possess a kind of strength that the world cannot imitate. Because while others need conditions to be right, the grateful walk with fire, regardless of the storm. You want to grow in silence? Begin by honoring what you already have. Not just what you dreamed of, but what you almost forgot. Your health, your time, your skills, your scars, your lessons, your freedom to try again. Thank life, not with empty words, but with the way you live. With how hard you work. With how deeply you pay attention. Let gratitude not just be a word, but a posture. A state of mind so disciplined that even failure cannot remove your focus. Because when you live from gratitude, you are not just preparing for success. You are already walking in it. Chapter 11. Mastery of the Self, the final threshold before greatness. The greatest battle is not against others, nor against the world, nor even against the endless challenges that life will inevitably place before you. The greatest battle has always been, and will always be, the battle against the self. Not the self you present to the world. Not the image you curate, or the identity you've built from habit and reaction. But the deeper self, the hidden force beneath every decision, every delay, every excuse, every burst of doubt or sudden sabotage. That self must be confronted. that self must be mastered. Because without self-mastery, every victory will eventually become a loss. Every success will be temporary. Every rise will be haunted by collapse. Mastery of the self is the final threshold that most never cross, not because they lack ambition, but because they lack discipline to confront their own patterns. You must understand that no amount of external control can replace internal governance. A man who cannot command his own thoughts will be a slave to the thoughts of others. A woman who cannot harness her own emotions will be manipulated by anyone who triggers them. Without self-mastery, you become easy to lead, easy to mislead, easy to break. But when you begin the path of inner dominion, when you look honestly at your habits, your tendencies, your weaknesses without judgment or denial, then something ancient awakens within you. The same fire that built civilizations, that held warriors steady on battlefields, that kept monks still in caves for decades, that fire begins to burn in you. And when it does, silence no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like precision, power, command. Self-mastery begins in the smallest moments. In choosing to respond instead of react. In observing your impulses before you obey them. In waking up when your mind offers every reason to stay asleep. In delaying gratification not as an act of suffering, but as an investment into identity. Because every small act of self-control is not just a habit, it is a statement to yourself that you are in charge. Not your fear. Not your fatigue. Not your old stories. And that, over time, becomes a kind of spiritual authority, an inner kingdom that no storm can shake. But don't be fooled. This path is not glamorous. It is not loud. It will not earn you applause. In fact, the deeper you go, the lonelier it may feel. Because self-mastery removes illusions. It tears down your false dependencies. It separates you from the comfort of mediocrity. You begin to say no more often. Not just to people, but to your own distractions. You begin to walk away from conversations, from comforts, from patterns that once gave you temporary relief but secretly robbed you of growth. And as your standards rise, so too will your isolation. But in that sacred solitude, you'll find what you never could in crowds: clarity. You begin to trust yourself in ways you never have. Not because things get easier, but because your character gets stronger. You stop hoping for motivation and start showing up from principle. You stop asking for permission and start building from intention. You don't just chase your goals. You become the kind of person who doesn't betray them. That is what mastery means. Not perfection. Not control over life's chaos. But control over your alignment in the midst of chaos. The storm no longer defines you because you've trained yourself to be still within it. And make no mistake, this mastery is not a final destination. It is a constant refinement. A lifelong sharpening. Because every level of success will introduce new temptations. Every level of visibility will test your humility. Every new room you enter will challenge your sense of identity. Without inner strength, each achievement becomes a trap. But with it, each achievement becomes a tool. You do not belong to the success. You use the success to expand your reach, your impact, your purpose. And in that alignment, your life begins to move with elegance, not desperation. There is a reason the ancient Stoics trained themselves to detach from praise and insult alike. There is a reason samurai warriors spent decades in silence before ever lifting a blade. Because true power lies in the man who can govern his own mind, who can observe his anger, his doubt, his desires, and still choose clarity. Self-mastery makes you dangerous, not because you dominate others, but because no one can dominate you. Your emotions become your allies. Your thoughts, your servants. Your silence, your weapon. When you master yourself, you stop wasting time. You stop leaking energy into arguments, distractions, cravings, and complaints. Your life becomes direct, quiet, forceful. You move with an inner calm that can't be faked. You no longer need to explain yourself, defend yourself, or impress anyone. Your work becomes the proof. Your presence becomes the message. Your existence becomes a statement of power, because you are no longer at war with yourself. So take this seriously. Self-mastery is the foundation of everything. Without it, your vision collapses. Your growth plateaus. Your peace remains a fantasy. But with it, you become a vessel through which greatness can move freely. And when you walk into a room, you will not need to speak. People will feel something different. Not just skill. Not just ambition. But control. Presence. And that is something the world cannot ignore, even if you never say a word. Chapter 12. The Quiet Crown. There is a moment, rare, private, and profound, when you no longer need the world to confirm what you've become. When you no longer seek mirrors in other people's eyes. When you walk not for applause, not for admiration, not even for recognition, but because it is your nature to move forward. That moment, when silence feels like truth and solitude feels like clarity, is the arrival. Not of success, not of fame, not of perfection, but of power, the kind that doesn't make noise, because it doesn't need to. It radiates in how you enter a room, how you hold your breath before you speak, how you remain calm while others panic, how you carry peace without having to preach it. This is the crown the world cannot give and the world cannot take. It is forged in silence. And it rests not on your head, but on your mind, on your will, on your refusal to betray the journey that brought you here. To arrive at that crown is to understand what few are willing to face, that the path to greatness is not paved with validation but with resistance. With friction. With days where nothing makes sense and you build anyway. With seasons of invisibility where the only proof of progress is the quiet echo inside that says keep going. The greatest victories of your life will never be posted. They will never be clapped for. They will live deep inside your identity, shaping the way you walk, the way you look at others, the way you treat time. When you live by principle, not preference, you start to access a frequency most never hear. You rise not by shouting louder, but by needing to shout less. The storm no longer stirs you. You have become the sky above it. True power doesn't grow in the spotlight. It grows behind closed doors. It grows in how you manage your impulses, in how you deal with rejection, in how you remain composed when others collapse. It grows in how you respond to disrespect, how you handle delay, how you process failure. And as it grows, you begin to shed what no longer fits, old identities, toxic environments, people who loved the weak version of you, but fear the strong one. This shedding is not cruelty. It is sacred. It is necessary. You do not evolve by clinging to what you've outgrown. You evolve by releasing it. Not with resentment, but with reverence. Because the quiet warrior does not destroy the past. He honors it and moves beyond it. When you begin to win in private, when you begin to rise without the need to be seen, you tap into something eternal. You become part of the great lineage of souls who understood that legacy is not built through attention. It is built through alignment. Men like Marcus Aurelius, who led an empire while writing meditations not meant to be published, but simply to govern his own thoughts. Women like Harriet Tubman, who carried her people through darkness without asking history to remember her name. Builders like Nikola Tesla, who died alone but changed the very fabric of the modern world. They did not shout their greatness. They lived it. In action. In silence. In truth. And now it's your turn. The noise of the world will never stop. It will scream for your attention. It will seduce you with easy wins, with artificial success, with empty crowns that glitter but carry no weight. You will be tempted to explain yourself, to defend your path, to prove your worth. But you must not. Not because you are better, but because you are clear. Clarity does not argue. It executes. Focus does not beg. It builds. You must protect your mind as you would a kingdom, guard its gates, monitor its guests, and clean it daily. Because when your mind is ruled by you, the world can no longer manipulate you. And from that place of inner command, you will begin to see differently. Act differently. Breathe differently. Let the world underestimate you. Let them mock your silence. Let them think you've disappeared, that you're irrelevant, that you're no longer a threat. And while they talk, you transform. While they perform, you prepare. While they shout, you sharpen. And one day, when the time is right, when your silence has matured into mastery, you will emerge. Not as an echo of anyone else. Not as a product of trends. But as a force that cannot be ignored. Not because you announced yourself, but because your presence is too real to overlook. The crown you wear will not sparkle. It will not shine. It will not be admired by the crowd. But you will feel it in the way your thoughts align with your actions, in the way your discipline becomes instinct, in the way your peace refuses to be shaken by outer chaos. That crown will be invisible, but undeniable. And that is the only crown that lasts. So work in silence, not to be mysterious, but to be focused. Win in private, not to hide, but to master. Grow without noise, not to impress, but to evolve. And when the world finally asks how you did it, how you became this composed, this lethal, this intentional, smile gently and say nothing. Because when it's real, you never need to say a word.